Hitchhiking.
Let's zoom back to the 1970s. This iconic decade, known for its disco fever and bell-bottoms, holds more than just these well-known trends. Get ready as we unveil 30 unique things from the 70s that kids today just won't get. From banana seat bikes to the Saturday morning cartoons. Ready? Let's roll.
Now Chocula's eyes really moved. So did Frankenberry's.
Number 30. Limited TV channels. Back in the 70s, watching TV was a whole different ballgame. Imagine this, just 3 main channels in public broadcasting to choose from. Yep, only 3. No Netflix, no endless streaming choices. And if you wanted to switch channels, you had to actually get up and turn the dial yourself. Those were the days when we eagerly awaited our favorite shows, including the primetime hits and those awesome Saturday morning cartoons. It was epic to sit down with a huge bowl of cereal and watch cartoons for hours. But with so few options on TV, it's not surprising that we ended up spending lots of time outdoors. Plus, let's not forget, a lot of parents were pretty keen on kicking their kids out to play. Number 29. Superhero underwear. Ever zoomed around your house pretending to be Superman or Batman? If this was you in the 1970s, chances are you are rocking a pair of superhero underoos. These weren't just any old undies. They were a 2-in-1 deal. Part underwear, part superhero costume, they made you feel unstoppable as you strutted around your home. Those underoos were way more than clothes. They were like your secret identity, especially the ones that look just like the real superhero getups. Kids today just don't get the same thrill from their underwear, do they? Number 28. Giant console stereos. Back in the 70s, having people over at our place was the best. Mom would be all dressed up in her hostess outfit, handing out snacks, while Dad got the tunes rolling on our console stereo in the living room. These stereos were like an all-in-one music station with a turntable, radio, and speakers, all packed into one. Super convenient for jamming out at home. Having a console stereo was like a big deal back then. It wasn't just a gadget. It was this fancy piece of furniture that you'd probably show off in your house. If you had one, it meant you were doing pretty well for yourself. It was a symbol of style and class, and folks used this as a cool way to impress their guests. Number 27. Record stores. In the 70s, record stores were the real deal, kind of like how the mall was in the 80s. They were more than just places to buy tunes. They were hangout spots. Imagine chilling with your friends, flipping through vinyl records and getting a sneak listen before buying them. The folks working there knew their music inside and out and always had some under-the-radar tracks to recommend. And it wasn't all that weird to end up chatting with someone you just met because you both dug the same kind of music. Those local record shops were something else, a vibe you just don't get these days. Number 26. Blue eyeshadow. In the 70s, makeup was all about that polished, I've got my act together look. We totally wanted everyone to notice we were wearing makeup and think, wow, that's cool. Blue eyeshadow? Man, it was everywhere. It was like the go-to color for any day, any time. But then the 80s hit and we were like, nah, let's move on. And honestly, blue eyeshadow hasn't really made a big comeback for everyday wear. When you think about it, it makes sense. Take a model's gorgeous green eyes, for example. Why would you want to hide them behind blue eyeshadow? Right? Number 25. Grooming. Thinking about the 70s, guys really had their style game on point. It was all about rocking those manly mustaches, epic sideburns, and some serious big hair. And you couldn't miss that classic aftershave scent they had going on. It was all about that macho vibe, and dudes were really into keeping their look sharp. Plus, their fashion choices? Bold and out there. As long as you could undo a couple of buttons to flaunt that chest hair, you were nailing it. Seriously, the level of cool and swagger guys had back then? Unmatched. Number 24. Toe socks. Toe socks were all the rage back in my middle school days. They were super colorful and often came with matching gloves. You'd think we'd wear them with open-toed shoes to show off, but nope, we just rocked them with our regular kicks. And the best part? Telling our friends. Guess what? I'm wearing toe socks. It's a pretty big deal and super exciting for most kids. Number 23. Polaroid camera. If you wanted to snap the best moments in the 70s, you just had to have a Polaroid camera. There was something so cool about clicking a button and then, bam, you've got a photo in your hands. But you had to be choosy with your shots since film rolls could only hold so many pictures. And remember shaking the photo to make it develop faster? Turns out, that was just a myth. Now, bringing around a big Polaroid wasn't always practical, so photo booths were the next best thing. They were like magnets for teens, popping up in all the cool hangouts like arcades, malls, and roller rinks. It was the perfect way for everyone to freeze their fun times with a strip of goofy, memorable pics. Number 22. Mushroom decor. Imagine zapping back to a 70s kitchen. What do you see? Mushrooms. Mushrooms everywhere. We're talking mushroom plates, mushroom curtains, even mushroom wallpaper. It was like the ultimate kitchen trend. Back in the day, there was this whole earthy vibe going on, and mushrooms just fit the bill perfectly. They were like the go-to fungus for that laid-back earthy style. You could say it had its own kind of charm, with every corner of the room giving off those mushroom-inspired vibes. Number 21. Mood rings. Mood rings were this cool thing with a tiny liquid-filled glass stone on top. Inside, there were these thermochromic liquid crystals that changed colors with temperature changes. Each color reflected your mood. Blue meant you were calm, and green meant you were happy. Back in middle school, we had this belief that if your ring turned purple, it meant you were crushing on whoever you were chatting with. You can imagine the kind of drama that stirred up. Everyone, boys and girls alike, was into mood rings for about a month, and then, just like a lot of other fads, we just kind of moved on and forgot about them. Number 20. Morning cereal. Waiting for the weekend was all about those Saturday morning cartoons, and you just had to have a bowl of sugary cereal to make it perfect. In the 70s, the real thrill was digging for that surprise toy in the cereal box. We'd bug our parents to get a certain cereal, not because it was our favorite flavor, but all for the toy inside. It could be a goofy little game or a tiny figurine, but man, it felt like striking gold when you reached the bottom of the box and found that prize. It turned breakfast cereal into something way more exciting than just a morning meal. Way different from how it is today. Number 19. Aluminum tabs. Cracking open a beer or soda in the 1970s? It was a whole different ballgame compared to now. You jank back that ring and peel off the aluminum tab. And back in the day, most people just chucked those tabs anywhere. On the ground, at the beach, you name it. Those sharp little pieces of metal could be a real pain, especially if you were walking around barefoot. Those pull tabs were a kind of hazard we just dealt with. But soon enough, things changed to the stay tabs we know today. Still, dealing with those old school tabs was just a part of the 70s charm and fun. Number 18. Hitchhiking. Back in the 70s, hitchhiking was like super easy and totally normal. You'd always see people on the side of the road thumb out looking for a ride. Drivers didn't think twice about picking up hitchhikers. It was just a cool way to help someone else on their journey. There was this awesome sense of friendship and adventure on the road that's kind of hard to find these days. Sure, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. You might run into a few odd characters, but hey, that was just part of the thrill. These days, hitching a free ride is a no-go in a lot of places, but back then, it wasn't rare at all to see a soldier, a student, or even a hippie trying to catch a lift. Number 17. Metal lunchboxes. School lunches in the 70s, they were all about that metal lunchbox and the matching thermos. These weren't just for carrying your sandwich and apple. They were a cool way to show off your favorite TV and movie characters. And let's not forget the rust. Those lunchboxes could get pretty beat up, with every ding and scratch turning rusty. But our parents, they didn't seem too fussed about it. And that smell when you opened your metal lunchbox after it's been sitting around all day. Unforgettable. Kids today with their fancy ice packs and insulated bags have no idea what growing up in the 70s was like. Number 16. Cassettes. Back in the 70s, whipping up a mixtape was like a craft. You'd have to camp out by the radio for ages, just waiting for that perfect song to come on. And even if you nailed the timing, half the time you'd still end up with the DJ chatting over the start of the track. But that was all part of its quirky charm. Cassettes were a trip too, especially when they get all tangled up. Then you'd be there, spinning the tape back into place with a pencil. These cassettes were basically the OG playlists. letting us listen to our favorite tunes wherever we wanted for the first time. Number 15, drive-in theater. Drive-in theaters were like the ultimate family hangout spot. Mom would get the little ones all cozy in their PJs, and then we'd all hop in the car, buzzing with excitement for the drive-in. Kids would spend time playing on the playground, burning off energy until it got dark and the movie began. Then most of us would end up snoozing in the back seat while the adults enjoyed the film. And as we got older, the drive-in turned into the spot for all sorts of fun and shenanigans. Number 14, charm bracelets collection. Before Pandora bracelets became a thing, we all rocked those chunky sterling silver charm bracelets to let everyone know what we were all about. Remember how they were super heavy and made that loud jingle-jangle sound every time you moved? Dang, that was part of the charm, right? It was like a badge of honor to have your bracelet loaded with all those charms. Each one told a story about your adventures. Popped over to Paris? Slap on an Eiffel Tower charm to mark the trip. Love playing tennis? Don't forget the tennis racket charm. Seriously, there was a charm for every single life event. Number 13, G.I. Joes and Barbie dolls. You know, kids nowadays probably still play make-believe, but I bet they're not spending hours with G.I. Joe figures and Barbies, creating those wild stories like we did. Back in the day, we'd haul out all our dolls and their gear and just dive into an afternoon of storytelling, moving them around in our imaginary worlds. Playing solo was cool, but it was different when you had a buddy join in. We'd spend hours just dressing up our dolls, taking them on picnic escapades and embarking on all sorts of adventures. Those were the days. Number 12, lawn darts. Back in the 70s, a toy wasn't really considered cool unless it had the potential to, put you in danger or at least give you a good scare. Take lawn darts, or jarts, for instance. These things were all the rage. There were these big darts with metal tips and plastic fins, and you chuck them towards a target on the ground, aiming to get them stuck in the middle. But guess what? Letting kids hurl these giant metal spikes around? Maybe not the greatest plan. Turns out a bunch of kids got hurt, and eventually, in 1988, they had to pull the plug on lawn darts. Who would have thought, right? Number 11, flash cubes. Back in the 70s, say you wanted to snap some family pics indoors with your Kodak Instamatic. First thing you'd do? Slap a flash cube on top of that camera. These flash cubes had 4 tiny bulbs. When you clicked a photo, one of the bulbs would light up, giving you that burst of light you needed for your shot. Flash cubes were kind of a big deal because they were way better than the old school flash bulbs, which were one and done. But let's be real, those cubes weren't cheap, and the light they threw off? Not always the most flattering. Eventually, cameras with built-in flashes showed up and flash cubes became a thing of the past. Number 10, mimeograph paper. Remember the days before photocopiers? We had those mimeograph machines or ditto machines to crank out copies. Every kid from that era totally gets the nostalgia of that sweet, fresh ditto smell. We'd all take a deep whiff every time a new batch was passed around in class. Those machines worked by pushing ink through a stencil that was wrapped around a rotating drum right onto the paper. And yeah, you had to crank those things manually. That's why my sister, who used to teach back then, still says she needs to run it off whenever she's about to print something. Old habits die hard, right? Number 9, sun-in. Back in the 70s, everyone was all about getting that perfect look, and sun-in was the go-to for those dreamy, sun-kissed highlights. Didn't matter if you were a guy or a gal. If you were a teen back then, you'd probably have a funny story about trying to turn blonde with sun-in. The deal was you'd spray this stuff on your damp hair and then chill in the sun, waiting for it to do its magic. The ads make you think you'd end up with this gorgeous, natural-looking blonde hair. But really, sun-in was just a mix of hydrogen peroxide and lemon juice, so more often than not, you'd end up with this dry, kind of orangey hair. Everyone tried to go super blonde, slathering their hair with sun-in and baking under the sun for hours. And it was a weekly thing to see someone show up at school rocking a bright orange mane. Number 8, electric can openers. So, back in the 70s, it was like a rule that every kitchen had to have an electric can opener. They were such a big deal that they were even a hit as wedding gifts. But then manual can openers started getting way better over time. Anyone remember those super flimsy ones from back in the day? Eventually they became so good that they kind of knocked the electric ones off their pedestal. Plus, those electric can openers weren't cheap either. We're talking about $16 in 1970, which is like a whopping $123 in 2023 money. Number 7, the winged hare. Charlie's Angels? They were total hairstyle trendsetters in the 70s. Everyone was either after that iconic full shag like Farrah Fawcett or craving Jaclyn Smith's flawless winged cut. Wings were all about those feathered bangs that curled just right away from your face. Man, just think about waking up at 5 in the morning during high school to get your hair just like that. You need your hair super clean, a solid blow dry with the hair rolling away from your face, and don't forget the hot curlers. It might have looked effortless and breezy, but trust me, it was anything but low maintenance. Number 6, we hung blacklight posters. In every 70s neighborhood, there was always that one teenage guy who decked out his room with blacklight posters. You know, the dude everyone whispered about, saying he smoked dope. Those posters were wild. They had these bright fluorescent designs that totally glowed under a black or ultraviolet light. They were usually printed on black paper or velvet, making the colors pop even more. And if you had a brother with a room like that, you might have hit the jackpot. Sometimes he'd let you come in. He'd switch off the main lights, flick on the black light, and blast some Pink Floyd. You'd just sit there, totally mesmerized. Number 5, Candy's high heels. Cute, but oh so uncomfy and not exactly practical. That pretty much sums up Candy's, the shoes every girl just had to have in the 70s. The classic Candies were like these wooden platforms that basically made your feet slide down and dangle off the front. Talk about a fashion pain. And by the end of the night, your feet would be all swollen and sore. But hey, we still loved rocking our Candies to the disco, because who said fashion was always about comfort, right? Number 4, Love's Baby Soft. So, there was this ad back in the 70s that everyone thought was totally okay and not at all iffy. It was like, haha, grown women dressed up like little kids and super attractive. But for real, Love's Baby Soft was this line of scented products that smelled just like baby powder. Mostly it was the young teens who were just dipping their toes into the world of fragrances who wore it. It had this gentle, non-invasive scent that wasn't too in your face. Man, if only the guys in the early 2000s had gone for something like this instead of dousing themselves in Axe body spray, right? Number 3, lip smackers. Bonnie Bell lip smackers? If you were a teen or preteen girl in the 70s, you definitely had a lip smacker or two in your purse. These lip smackers came in fun flavors and cute colors. They were just irresistible. But let's be real, they were pretty much useless as lip balms because the moment you slapped some on, you'd end up licking it right off. They were just too tasty. Number 2, banana seat bikes. You'd wake up, snag your awesome bike with that banana seat and the clothespin clipped to the wheel spokes, and head off to hang out with your friends. Helmets or safety? That stuff never even crossed our minds. If you took a dive over the handlebars, well, that was just part of the adventure. Number 1, no caller ID. So, back in the day, when that kitchen phone rang, someone always picked it up. We're talking pre-caller ID times, so you never knew who was on the other end. Crazy, right? It could be your best buddy or some random salesperson. You might end up recognizing the voice and spend the next half hour tangling the phone cord while chatting, or you might be hollering across the house to let someone else know it's for them. Kids today might find it wild that we just answer the phone without any idea of who was calling. And that's a wrap on our journey back to the 1970s. We hope you enjoyed this blast from the past and got a taste of what life was like in this iconic decade. Did any of these things surprise you? Or maybe they brought back some fond memories? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your stories. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.